Okay, great. All right. So first on our item is public comment. I'm going to ask that we keep the public comment to 15 minutes, which is our policy for the school committee. And we ask that folks keep their comments to 3 minutes or less if possible. So if you would like to speak, you just need to raise your hand. I see a couple hands raised, which I appreciate. And at the bottom, in case anyone's unfamiliar with this, at the bottom of your screen, you should see a little icon that says raise hand. And if you click the little up arrow, that will raise your hand and I will call on you. So I'm going to first go to Angus McQuilkin. I think you should be unmuted, Angus.
Have you heard?
Yep.
Okay. Jen, should I assume the policy that's been posted with the meeting documents is the policy that's going to be reviewed today regarding flags and banners?
Correct. That was what was submitted to us by our attorney. Yep.
Okay. Well, then thank you for the opportunity to be heard. Let me start by saying that I think it's extraordinary that this subcommittee went out to the community for feedback and then proceeded to ignore all of the feedback that you received, including the thoughtful, well-researched, well-reasoned proposal from our students. The community has been clear in its feedback. We do not want the school committee to be making these decisions based on your own personal politics. These decisions should be made within the school community with involvement from students, teachers, and administrators. And now, frankly, you've come up with a policy proposal to be discussed at a time when you're quite aware that students cannot participate that is even worse than where you started, one that will never be accepted by this community. The role of a school committee is to set policy, not to serve as the day-to-day implementer of those policies. The role of implementer is left to school administrators and teachers, not the school committee. This policy would have the school committee making day-to-day decisions about what flags can be displayed in the schools, apparently without any input from any other member of the community. The school community, students, teachers, and administrators have for literally hundreds of years, reached decisions on this without elected officials making these decisions. This policy would remove all of those people from the decision-making, exactly what this community has told you forcefully and overwhelmingly through forum after forum they do not want. Residents of this community have come to understand that you have a political objective here, to remove a particular flag to which you object, and that you have now spent months of valuable time trying to come up with a policy that will allow you to accomplish your political objective. I read the letter from your hand-selected law firm, hired, by the way, with no accountability or RFP process, and it's no surprise to me that your hand-selected law firm has given you the opinion that you asked for. But what your hand-picked law firm has provided is the thinnest possible legal argument to try to justify the seizure of authority that you are attempting through this policy based on a case from outside of Massachusetts that your chosen law firm's own letter acknowledges is not applicable in Massachusetts. Know that I and other parents, students, and teachers that have been paying close attention to this issue strongly oppose this latest draft flag censorship policy and will be very vocal in our opposition as the school committee as a whole proceeds with any further policymaking process in this topic. But I'll wrap up with an important question, a critical question. Who exactly under this policy is a third party? Would I, a parent, homeowner, and taxpayer in Marblehead, be considered a third party under this proposal? Would a student or student group in our schools be considered a third party under this policy? Last I checked, the First Amendment to the U.S. Constitution, in addition to guaranteeing the freedom of speech and expression, affords me and every other citizen the right to petition my government for a redress of grievances. So if your reference to third party means what I think it means, that nobody not on the school committee can ask the school committee to approve or disapprove the flying of a flag or banner, what you're proposing here is not only contrary to the values of this community, it is also blatantly unconstitutional. Thank you again for the opportunity to be heard.
Thank you, Angus. I have Meg O.
Hi there. I'm Meg O'Hare. I live at 28 Roosevelt Ave. I moved to Marblehead last year. I bought a house here. It's very expensive, as you guys all know. And I moved here because of the schools. And since then, I have been hugely disappointed in the work of the school committee, kind of to the point where I am shocked. This policy is bad. The alternative presented by the students is, if we want a flag up, we'll talk to the principal. it's incredibly reasonable. Also, we've been fine without a flag policy. I don't understand why the school committee, and also based off of, the vote of no confidence from last year and the lack of changes up till now, why the school committee is trying to garner a new responsibility when the responsibilities that already fall with the school committee are not being done very well. As you can tell, I'm pretty upset by this. I made a pretty big bet on my and my family's future in moving to this town. And we've already, run up over $250,000 of legal fees in the way that the strike was handled. And why are we passing another policy just to get sued again and waste more money? Like, I don't understand why the students-driven and also legally vetted solution of, like everything else in school, we want something, we talk to the administrators can say no. Like, I don't understand why this is something that the school policy needs to pick the hallway decorations. Like, this just doesn't make any sense to me. Also, I don't know why I have to come here in the middle of my workday in order to voice this opinion when already I've come to other meetings where this has been the same overwhelming sentiment. Like, what is this? I am legitimately confused and pretty upset. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Meg. I have Chris Bruhl.
Thank you. Like the woman Meg that just spoke, it's just overwhelmingly disheartening at this point that we're still dealing with this and still having the same conversation. I mean, let's just be honest. At this point, it's just clear that the community forum was just a performative exercise being carried out so that you could check off a box that said you offered the public a chance to speak. When it comes down to it, it's pretty clear that the subcommittee, maybe the larger committee, is not interested in what we have to say or how we feel. You're not interested in what our students have to say. You're not interested in how our students feel. You're not interested in the negative effects that this flag censorship policy will have on many kids who are already being ostracized. Mind you, this comes at a time when the federal government is on a warpath to literally eliminate the identities of our friends, neighbors, and family members. We should be doing more as a community to protect these individuals, not less. As members of the school committee, you were elected to, quote, provide a safe and nurturing environment in which our students can develop the values, knowledge, and skills needed to achieve full potential in their personal, social, and work lives and become contributing members of society. It's becoming more and more apparent that some of your views are clearly not in alignment with this mission, nor with the broader community's values. I, for one, look extremely forward to voting for a new school committee and new school committee members this June who share the beliefs of a majority of Marbleheaders, not just a loud and boisterous minority. Tired of this. Thank you.
Thank you. Pollender, I don't know if it's Sharman or Jeremy. Or someone else. If you could unmute yourself. Is it Sharman or Jeremy Pollender? All right, I'll come back to you. I'm going to go to just, if you want to speak, just leave your hand up. I'll come back. You just need to be able to unmute yourself. I'm going to move to Lindsay Smith.
Thank you. Lindsay Smith, 15 Washington Street. I'd actually like to take this moment to address the students who unfortunately cannot be here because this meeting is while they are in school. But I would like to applaud their courage, their persistence, and their determination, as well as their excellent flag policy, which I fully support. I want them to know that this is a moment in time and that what is happening right now will soon be the past. They are the future. The future is inclusive. The future is affirmative of all identities. And this What is happening right now is exactly what you think is happening. So please don't give up the fight. Please keep speaking up for your truth and for others. And thank you for your time.
Thank you, Lindsay. So I think Hollander's unmuted again. I don't know if it's
Jen, can you hear me?
Charmin. Yep. Is that you, Charmin?
Yes, yes.
Hi, welcome.
Hi, Charmin Pollender. Once again, I will speak on behalf of my children and myself. I'm continuously listening to all of you on your soapboxes, telling this community saying to this community what I need and what people of color want. This is yet affects my children, the ones that you claim are marginalized. And clearly, you don't want to listen to what people of color have to say. We have listened to all of you continuously say the exact same thing, how people are speaking up and they want these flags. Well, did you ever think about the constant harassment that I've received, that Nyla had to endure last week, that my children have to deal with? These flags have continued to be a divide in this community and in this country. I've lived in this community for 20 years. I have never had any racial issues until 2021. And to be honest, it is continually getting worse. My husband had to write a letter to the Current because they failed to report on what happened to Nyla Dubois last week. That is the problem that you people do not seem to see or understand. But please continue to tell us what we need and what this community needs. Do not blame it on the school committee. It's you. You are all at fault. Think about the people of color who live here, who are taxpayers. I am so sick and tired of listening to all of you on your soapboxes acting like we need white voices to speak for us and our children. I am sick of it. I don't even feel like I belong in this community anymore. Do any of you have any idea how that feels? I'm sorry for yelling, Jen. I am so angry, and my husband is so angry, and he would be on this if he wasn't traveling. Shame on all of you.
Thank you, Charmin.
Charmin.
Cindy Tower Lowen. Welcome. Yeah. Cindy, you should be unmuted.
Hi. I'm going to keep my video off because I am in the car and I did not know that this meeting was taking place until just recently. So Cindy Tower Lowen, 12 Trinity Road, Marblehead, Mass. I'm first going to just say something to Charmin in the sense of, I am sorry that you feel the way you do. I believe that there are many of us that are on this call or have been part of this and part of this community who are not looking at this as a being on a soap. That said, I have very strong feelings. I have many friends that are not only Black, brown, white, Asian, and they do not necessarily agree with some of the sentiments that Charmin has said. But we all have different opinions. And in this case, I have to say that I am in agreement in terms of what Angus said, what Chris Beal said, and also what Lindsay Smith and Meg said. What I see here is you guys had been approached to have a policy because there was no policy. I get that. However, this has been going on, and the fact that you guys called a meeting and you have the right within 48 hours in terms of posting it, but with everything that has transpired on this particular policy draft, you called this meeting without giving really substantial notice other than what you're mandated by. And then you call it at 11:30 on a Friday. And I'm sorry, you guys can do a lot better than this. And that's what we expect as a school committee, is that you guys can do a lot better, because the students don't have the opportunity to be here. Whether they're white, black, Asian, they do not have the opportunity to be here. And a lot of other people don't have the opportunity to be here. And I just think that it is clearly, in the way I look at it is, did you guys really listen to the community, the students? And let's just address the students. Did you really pay attention to what they were saying? That they wanted input? That they wanted to be part of this decision? That they wanted to be the ones that made this decision? It's really hard for me to sit here and say that you guys really, really did that. And instead, we're here on a Friday, 11:30 with this draft. And then, of course, with the attorney letter. I mean, I'm sorry, Jen, I still think you can do better. Okay. I've known you for a very long time, and I expected more. In addition to that, I think Angus said something regarding, the political view. And so let's just put it out there. Okay. Our kids and anyone else needs to feel safe and protected in the environment that we have right now. And yet, here we are. If this isn't politically charged, then I don't know what is. And I do believe this is all about the Black Lives Matter flag, as opposed to the other flags. And that breaks my heart, because Black lives do matter. It is not a political statement, and yet some people do believe it's a political statement. And the things I work on and I've worked on in terms of Black lives and justice and equity, here we are. And I just feel like what's going on in our country is playing out in our school committee right now. And that saddens me. And I really, truly wish that you had taken what the students said and you decided to go with that versus what you are putting forth today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Cindy. I have Carrie Lequin. I don't know if I pronounced that correctly.
You did. Thank you.
Okay. Well, welcome.
Thank you. Just wanted to make sure that I set a voice for the students, for their amazing work that they put forth at the last meeting, everything that they did and say, that their voices should be recognized for that they aren't here and have that opportunity to speak on their behalf. This is really what it's all about. It's about recognizing that school is a place where they're included and safe. In healthcare, we wear badges that says, you're safe in this space. This is where we're somebody that you can talk to, that you can come to. We're going to protect you. And education is about growth. And it's also about feeling all the time that they can share their points of views, whatever they may be, and be able to express that. And I think it's just really important to realize that you're not giving the majority of the community a voice in this at all. You're making a unilateral decision, and you're supposed to do that. This is part of your job. We all expect you to do your actual jobs every day like we do ours. And I just feel like you're using power in an inappropriate way. And it's not okay anymore. We've all seen it. We've watched it over the last couple of years. And it's just not what you're supposed to do. You're part of this community. You should be respecting your constituents and the voices that we all have. It's really important that the students have an opportunity, again, to, speak, or for you to say exactly why you're not taking in what they propose to you. That's really important. Take a stand. Tell us why, because I don't think anyone's really going to like what you have to say. And you have to, at some point, be responsible for the decisions that you're making. Marblehead is an amazing place to live and grow up, as many of us know. We all work really hard to afford the community that we live in. And it's really important that we set aside, again, differences and give everyone a voice. That's just not happening. It's just not happening. if you really want to go with what everybody's thinking. I know people have talked about on this that there is a very loud minority, and they're very loud. That's their intention. And unfortunately, you two are a part of that. And, that just has to be recognized. So it's time to really make sure that the students who this directly affects every day are involved in this decision making. And that's what they've asked for, and it needs to be considered. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry,
can't
it looks like
hear you.
you've been speaking, but you're on mute.
There you go.
We didn't hear anything that you just said, Jen, because you're on mute, but I got a notice to unmute, so I did.
Sorry. Sorry about that. Apologize for that. So thank you. And thanks everyone. So I had two more, you guys can hear me now? Allison, can you hear me? Yeah.
Yep, I can hear you,
good.
and I can hear Kate
Great.
too. Yep.
Oh, good.
wait.
All right. So I have two,
Wait.
Kate, are you
Kate's
still there?
Okay. Yep, she is. She
Kate
just lowered
Thompson.
her hand, so I think it moved her on the thing.
Oh, okay. All right. So I had Kate Thompson and Nyla Dubois. Those were the two hands I had left, and we're well past the 15 minutes. So I think we'll go with those two and move on. So Kate, why don't you go ahead?
Okay.
Sorry about that.
That's Kate Thompson, Booby Road. I agree with the vast majority of what people have said here today, so I won't restate, but I do want to ask two direct questions. The first one is, do you plan, and this is sort of piggybacking on what Carrie just said, do you plan to issue a formal response to our students, in your words, in response to their thoughtful proposal that they took time to create? Not lawyer speak, just your words and your rationale directly explaining your disagreement, your, I guess, apparent vehement disagreement with their POV. I think they deserve at least that much. And my second question is, and I'm glad that MASC is here today to see this conversation. I just like to know when you're going to get back to the normal business of policy work. And I'd like to remind the community that in the almost 2 years since this policy committee was seated, there have been 2 conversations on the table. One is this flag policy, and the other one is a blip about recess. And if I'm wrong, maybe there were a couple others that I missed, but the 2 big topics were those. And every town around us and every school committee and every other place in this nation has been cycling through policy work. First reads, second reads, final reads, getting community input on these things. They're doing basic maintenance on their existing policies, and they're implementing the new policies that MASC recommends all the time. We have done none of that work for 2 years in favor of this one topic mostly. And I'd like to know when you're going to get back to the basic work of a school committee, which is setting budget, setting policy, and hiring and firing superintendents. Just let us know.
Thank you. Okay, I have Nyla Dubois. Nyla, you should be able to unmute.
Okay, does that work?
Yes, hi Nyla, we can hear you.
Hi, sorry, I don't know how to take I don't know how to make the video work.
That's okay.
Because I'm on
No
my
problem.
phone. Okay, so I wanted to just address a couple of things quickly. First of all, one of the reasons I think we all need to be clear, the reason this has become such a big topic is because it hits at the heart of liberalism and freedom itself. When I keep hearing people say our students, all the student, or these students, everyone, words like this, and the students need a voice. But all I'm hearing is that some students are claiming to have a voice for all of the students. The students that came up with that policy were not every single student in the school. They did not represent the students at Village School, even though last year, I mean, at the last meeting, one student said that he was representing the students at Village School, but I know for a fact that he wasn't representing all of the students. Even the student at Vets who had 60 signatures, he was not representing all of the students. And so I think that you guys, the subcommittee, did a very good job at making a policy that rises above all of the students and doesn't allow any one faction, whether it be students, administrators, or the school committee, to decide which symbols speak for everyone. And I have to be clear, because the distinction here is the free speech of the students versus the speech of the government, which speaks for everybody. So if the students have tons of free speech rights. And I do think that, I think it was Kate Thompson is correct, that it is important to explain to the students what the nature of this policy and why it's being implemented. And in my mind, it's because, you know, not one group of students can speak for the entire school. And even the school committee or the district itself can't speak for all of the students and say that this BLM flag necessarily represents all Black students, that the pride flag, I know someone said that the pride flag, that nobody has an issue with it, but that is untrue. And I think that there's a lot of people who can't speak. There are siblings that feel that they can't talk about it. We also have the Israeli flag that went up at some point. Who's going to be the arbiter of those flags? You know, you can't have people picking and choosing. And I think that it's important to let the students know that they can wear flags. They have lots of opportunities for free speech. What they can't do is tell the government what the government can say for everybody, because we elected you guys. And you're making the decisions because we elected you. Or you're making the policy because we elected you. And I think it's very smart to make a policy that says that nobody can decide which symbols speak for everybody. So that's pretty much all I have to say. And the only thing that I will leave you with is that I think everybody needs to be very careful of their language, because it gets really, really upsetting to me when people say everyone, people say the students, people say anyone, things like that, because it doesn't necessarily represent. I had 3 kids in the district. One graduated. I have, she was a lesbian at one point. I have 2 kids that are, they have Black grandparents. And, these symbols do not speak for my family. And we live in Marblehead. And there are many, many other families. There's 20,000 people here. You can't say that this one tiny group of students that made this draft flag policy speaks for the entire school or the entire district because it's a district policy. So thank you.
Thank you, Nyla. Appreciate that. I did see one more hand up. I think it's Audrey. So I'll go to Audrey, ask you to be brief if you could, because we do need to move on, but I do see you have your hand up. And it says Audrey iPhone, so I'm assuming that's your Audrey is your name. You need to unmute.
I got it. I was just finding the button. Hi,
Got it. We can hear you. Yep.
Audrey House, Lincoln
Audrey.
Park. Just quickly to Nyla's point, when we say everybody, the high school kids who were involved in that proposal were the kids who cared. As a teacher, I can tell you, the kids do not care what color you are or anything like that. It's the parents that place that on kids. So I just want to say, if this flag policy passes, I am moving my kid out of Marblehead, and I think a lot of people are starting to think the same thing. If we have this very right-wing school committee making these crazy policies that the majority of Marbleheaders have expressed very clearly that they are opposed to, then there is a big problem in the school committee and in the town. And I'm going to tell you an experience from my own home. I hear people say, we don't need that stuff in our schools. We don't need to talk about pride or Black Lives Matter. My child came home. She's in the Brown school. She said to me, Mom, is it true that white people are smarter than Black people? That's what she came home with. So I don't care about what everybody else says. Like, if that is in our schools, that should be something that teachers are talking about, because I don't want my child to hear that from somebody on the playground. And if she does, I need a grown-up in the school to say, hey, that is not okay. It's not an opinion to say that a white person is better than a Black person. It's not an opinion. It's not a fact. It's not an opinion. It's just wrong. It's hateful and it's disgusting. And I am telling you right now, you should not pass this flag policy, because a lot of people will be out of Marblehead public schools. Thank you.
Thank you, Audrey. I hope I pronounced that correctly. Okay, thank you. All right, great. So I am going to end public comment, and we are going to move on to the just get the agenda here, to the draft flag policy. So Allison, I'm just getting here. Allison, you should have received, I had forwarded to you the brief that was written, I guess it's a brief, or the opinion that was written
Last
by
night, yep.
our attorney, and the draft flag policy. Those two items. Do you have them there?
Yep.
Okay, great. So I just want, hopefully I'll answer some of these questions that folks had, and maybe address some of the concerns. I'm not sure. So we had the forums that we had. We did have students submit a draft or a suggested policy to us. That was shared with our attorney, John Foskett, who's the associate at our firm that handles that. So he responded. We actually had a conversation, and he responded. I asked him to specifically write a response based on what we talked about that could be released to the public. Normally, normally when you get an advice from an attorney, and if it's in writing, it's normally subject to attorney-client privilege, and normally it's not released per se. It would be something we would discuss, but it wouldn't be released. But I specifically asked for that because I think it was important, although it was quite detailed, is in regards to it being a brief. And also what he said, clearly what it said in the brief is that the issue around, in terms of the case law that he was referring to, the issue is that it is, according to the attorney, it is not an issue around First Amendment rights. It's an issue around public speech or First Amendment speech. It's an issue of government speech. And so what his opinion was, and what has been shared with other districts, is particularly with the Supreme Court case, that we have to be careful about what it is that we're saying is government speech, and that is what he was sort of detailing in the brief, and that therefore, so that we are not going to be accused of breaching that, the recommended policy is, which was the draft policy that he gave us, which was to limit, in terms of the sort of the official display on flagpoles or in common areas in the schools, to the flags that he had listed. I think it was the U.S. flag, the state flag, and potentially any military flags. I think there was a comment around the third-party request, which was a line in there. And just so everyone knows, this is also the hang on, I'm just letting some folks in here. This was also the policy that has been adopted by Sharon, Massachusetts. They had a similar situation. I think this was over a year ago or 2 years ago. And the question is, who is a third party, is probably worth going back and asking and defining, but it would be, my understanding is, anyone other than the school committee. And so that's the case. And that is his recommended policy to us. So where we stand right now, and Allison, let me just finish real quick, is that, the normal process of the policy subcommittee, which, by the way, our subcommittee meetings do take place during the day. We have Alicia here with us. Again, we typically have administrators or other folks who come during the workday. And I know some folks said they don't like that. I understand that. But that is typically when subcommittees meet. And we would typically talk about a policy. We would go through a draft. You and I, the subcommittee would work it out, and we would present it to the school committee. The policies do require 3 separate readings into the record. So I want to get your thoughts, Allison, and then I have some suggestions on how I think we should move forward. But maybe if you have any thoughts you want to share.
Yeah, I mean, I think there were a couple of additional things in regards to this policy that I had questions on, or that I think need to be further vetted before we move forward. I don't know if these are things you can take back to John. I think the school committee will not accept any third party requests. I think what Angus was suggesting is, who is a third party? Is a parent a third party? Is a teacher a third party versus a student or a student-led group? I think that absolutely should be more detailed there so that it can be clear. I'm not sure if we are talking about this just outside on the flagpole, or if this is for outside and inside, or if we want to consider having two separate ones. I might sneeze, sorry. Nope. That was another thing that I had thought about. I'm definitely going to sneeze. I can feel it. And the length of time that flags or banners would be displayed, if we wanted to put anything like that into this. Are we talking about displaying a flag outside, or are we talking about just a banner inside? Those are some of the things that I think need to be further vetted. I do think that outside of having, this is largely similar to what the students suggested, but the deciding body being the school committee versus being the administration. I do worry, or the principals in the schools, I do worry putting that on an administration or a principal would be too much. I don't believe I ever got an electronic copy of their policy. Jen, did you?
No.
Okay.
No, I got a hard copy, and that's what I scanned it in and sent that on to John.
Yeah, no, thank you. And we didn't get a copy of their Google form that they said they sent out with the 100 responses. But it would still be nice to see that, just to do a side-by-side comparison. I do think that as the governing body, or the elected body anyways, it is important. I think it's dismissive to say that it's just checking a box. I do think having the discussion and allowing them the opportunity to speak and share their thoughts, whether it's the community or students, is important and hugely valued. That doesn't always necessarily translate into doing what they suggested. And certainly, having been on the other side for years, I understand that frustration. I think that we should really think about vetting those things out a little bit more before doing an official reading with the full school committee. I'm sure that they'll have additional comments and concerns or thoughts as well that we will want to make sure to take into consideration, because it would be great to have something that could be agreed upon by all 5 of us moving forward.
Okay, so so we're looking for some clarification. I can get that from him, so I can work with that offline, and may actually have you also have an opportunity to speak to him. We just have to be careful about, obviously, the open meeting law in terms of
Absolutely,
speaking to him.
yeah.
And this is not a subject for anything that would go into executive session or anything like that. So the question is, who is a third party, the length of time, and then the outside flagpole issue. I can get clarification on that. I do know what he was saying is that there was a little aside at the bottom, which I thought was interesting, which he said he had made clear to administrators in the past, when this did come up a couple of years ago, that there is a statute on the books in Massachusetts that says that it is actually a criminal offense, interestingly, to display any other country's flag on a flagpole on a municipal property, schools or otherwise, outside of a building, so an outside flagpole. So that was sort of interesting. He said that there have been a few cases that is also been the case for inside a building, but the actual law says no outside countries' flags can be held outside on a flagpole, which that has not been the issue here. So he just sort of threw that in as just an aside. So, okay, so I can go back and get those answers from him. I'm going to suggest it might make sense for you to have a conversation with him as well, just so you can hear it directly.
Okay.
Because this has been going on for, quite a long time, and I think we, in the interest of wanting to move it forward, my hope was that however we decide to go forward with this, that our next school committee meeting is March 20th. I wanted to try to shoot to have the March 20th meeting that we would present, because I do think, although we probably have, I know we have an option to do at least 1 or 2 readings in subcommittee. I don't personally think we should do that. I think that we should, I'm suggesting we present to the school committee, and the full school committee can discuss it and deliberate, and the 3 readings would take place at a full school committee meeting, just, given, the intensity of feelings around this. And I want to be respectful of that. So so why don't I do that? But so if we could try to keep for the March 20th, if that's, a goal that you and I can have, that we have a draft of either this policy or some version of this, if that's what it turns out to be, after talking to John, and that we would move forward on the 20th.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, we have time still.
Yeah. So after we hang up, I'll email John Fosca. I'll put, make sure you guys get together. I'll have a conversation with him, but you and I can't have a conversation, and then we can come back
Right.
together, and perhaps reword this, or more effectively have him draft something. Because I think the other thing that, again, folks out there know, and Allison, I know you obviously know that, we have to take, or not we have to, we take our advice from our attorney, particularly in this case. And if there are folks out there that would like us to ignore our attorney's advice, that's not something I'm willing to do. Other school committee members may choose to do that. I think we start going down a slippery slope when we stop listening to what our attorney says. If people have issues with the attorney, that's a different story. But we do have them. They are giving us advice, and we do potentially have put ourselves at risk if we specifically do not follow their advice. So I think it's the right thing to do to, continue to get clarification and see if, based on, your thoughts or our thoughts about that, whether the draft could be reworded for consideration on the 20th. Okay.
Yeah, or expanded upon. Yeah, that's, I think, Angus brought up a couple of thoughts that I had as well from reading it. So,
okay.
And if anyone is having it, we want it to be clear from an interpretation perspective.
Yeah, and then I know there was someone brought it up, that about a communication back to the students, and I think that's fair, but I think we need to know what it is we're going to be communicating, because we're still in the process of determining what this draft policy will be. So I think that makes sense when we do have a policy we're going to present to the school committee. All right.
Yep.
So I'll set that up, and we'll move, and then so you and I will meet again before the 20th.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay,
absolutely.
I'm going to move on to the operating protocols. Alicia.
Point of inquiry, point of information. Ms. Taylor,
yeah.
did you say that you didn't have a copy of the student's proposal?
No, I have a hard
Is that
copy.
accurate?
No, I have a hard
we have
copy.
a hard copy.
Yep.
All right. Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, we had asked for an electronic copy to be emailed, and I don't have a record of receiving it, but they handed me a hard copy. Okay, Alicia.
I have a hard copy too. I just meant electronically with their Google form.
Alicia, are you there?
I am, yes.
Oh, hi, there you are. Welcome. Okay, so we're moving on to the next item on the agenda, which is the operating protocols. And I don't know, would it be helpful for me to bring those up, or have you had a chance to take a look at them?
I did take a look at them, yes, but I think having them on the screen is probably a good idea as we go through.
Okay, give me 1 second here. No, wait. It's got to pull it up here. Hang on. All right. Give me just pull it up here. Oh, guess what? I think I have it here. Let's see. All right. I'm not an expert Zoom sharing person, so just give me a second here.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, can you see my screen?
Yes.
So it should be, here are the operating protocols. I didn't download the document. I don't think it's downloadable. So we've still got the rest of our website here, but here are the school committee operating protocols that do fall under those categories: who we represent. I'm going to scroll down here, how we govern. There's a lot of those.
I don't know if anybody else has, but Alicia, do you have a gray box?
Yes, I do.
Oh,
There's like a gray box in the
where is it?
middle of your screen, Jen. I mean, I can see
Oh.
most of it, so that's okay, but
That's weird.
I'm not sure.
Do me a favor here.
It's like a rectangle. It's like,
Yeah.
All right.
okay. I just didn't know if it was I was sure it wasn't just me.
All right. Give me a second here.
Jen, I have them downloaded. If you want me to share my screen.
Sure. If you want to do that.
Okay.
Let me stop sharing mine. I made you a co-host, right?
You did, yes.
Yeah, so you should be able to. Oh, they are downloadable.
Okay. Can you see that now?
Yes, thank you.
Fantastic. Okay. So, thoughts on where you wanted to start with this? I did go through them, and I think they're good operating protocols. I think there's some places where you could probably tighten the language up a little bit more, but I do think I like the way they're broken down as far as your sections on who we represent, how we govern, how we communicate. I think that's a really effective way to organize operating protocols. So,
Okay.
where would you like to start with this?
Well, Elsa, did you have any thoughts
No, I would actually be looking to you, Alicia, to see in particular the places where we can add more detail, be more clear. I think those would be the most important places to focus.
Okay.
I think
so
also, Alicia, just so you know, my thoughts were they seem long. So yeah. I mean, in terms of numerous is the word.
Yes. So I'm actually going to show you all some other operating protocols. And I believe I sent these back after one of our workshops, but I want to show them to you on the screen now. Every school committee has to come up with their own operating protocols and how they put them together. But these are some really effective ones. This is from the Westford School Committee, which is the town I live in.
Yep.
They have broken it down to how we serve, how our meetings work, and how we communicate. And they've done so in a very clear and concise way that they've arranged bullet points. I think this is a very effective way to communicate their operating protocols. They also, they all sign it, not just the school committee members. They also have the superintendent sign it. So it's understood that this is how we communicate, not just with each other, but with the district as well. Melrose has a fantastic one too, where instead of starting with the categories of what they do, they've started with sort of their core value statements, where theirs are about supporting the educational welfare, demonstrating professionalism, etc. That is also a way to potentially do that. So going back to yours, sorry about that. I like that you have who we represent, how we govern, and as we scroll down, how we treat each other, how we communicate, how we will improve, and what are the limits of our authority, and what happens when things go wrong. I would suggest what we start with is, instead of having all of those categories, which many of them actually overlap a lot, what we should probably do is come back to 3 or 4 categories and then condense the things in them so that they're more succinct. So I would say start with who we represent. That's your value statement. That's your, who are we here for? We're here for the needs and interests of all of the students. We place them at the center of all of the decisions we make. Start with that. And then how we govern, and what was it called? It was, what are the limits of our authority? So I would say let's try and work on combining the how we govern and what are the limits of our authority. that should be more of a statement of these are the things that we are responsible for as a school committee. This is our charge from MGL. This is how we will carry those things out. So that should be the place where we talk about, we hold meetings in accordance with open meeting law. This is how things get on the agenda. This is how discussions happen. That's the place where you put all of that. And then I would say next up should probably be communication. You have some really good things here about how you communicate. Channeling information, understanding that the superintendent is the spokesperson for the district and the chair is the spokesperson for the school committee. And then how you communicate to the district itself. You did have a really good line in here about you did have a really good line in here. I don't think it's in this section about communicating information requests to the superintendent and not going out to various staff members. I think that's a really important point to make. You want to make sure that you're doing that thing we talk about in roles and responsibilities where you're channeling through the middle. That doesn't mean you don't ever communicate with staff. It just means that out of respect for everyone's, lanes, you channel through the middle. I also like the addition of the MASC social media guidelines. I would say if you're going to leave that there, attach that to the document. And then I think what the best way to do to combine the how we treat each other and how we will improve. I think those two things should probably be combined, and we should look at that along the lines of maybe something like we acknowledge our responsibility to be the to demonstrate leadership in the district. We will approach all of our meetings with respect for one another and respect for opinions, etc., and then talk about professional development and setting goals and things like that. So
is that already in there? I'm just trying to see about professional development and that sort of thing. Or would we be adding that? I'm scrolling down to
there's how
Yeah.
we will improve. So there's a little bit in there about like you don't necessarily need to restate that they have to attend orientation. That's I mean, yes, they do, but the state law says they have to within a year. So
yeah.
I think revising operating protocols, annual workshop, all of those things are great in that section. Developing goals, developing and maintaining a district new member orientation program. Do you currently have one of those?
No.
Okay. So I would say definitely I would keep that.
I think we have a checklist.
Yeah, we have a checklist, but I wouldn't say it's,
no,
I wouldn't
it's not a
describe it as
program.
program.
Okay.
It's charting the course is basically what it is.
Yes. So I would say instead of saying, developing and maintaining, I would say you would want to word that more along the lines of providing new members with the information and support they need. And then you could do as a school committee goal, developing that actual process. Okay. And I can share with you some slides that I have from the Neshoba Tech new member orientation process, because they have it's my committee. I had no part in developing this, though. That was all before me. They have a really thorough onboarding process for new members, which is phenomenal. So I think what we should look at is, let's break down your categories to start with, take that who we represent language, and we want to move that up to your introductory statement. This is who we represent. This is, what our mission vision is.
Okay.
And then
so we're not going to have that as a category. That'll just get moved up.
Right.
That will just get moved up, and we'll combine that with the statement that's above there about academic, social, and emotional success.
Yep.
And then I think we take how we govern and what the limits of our, govern and the limits section.
Yep.
And we're going to combine some of those statements so that it makes it clear that we govern through these processes. So it doesn't say limits. It just says this is how we govern, period.
Okay.
I would recommend, in addition to having, in addition to the language you already have there, I would say I say this during charting the course all the time, the super secret fourth charge to a school committee beyond budget, policy, and superintendent is knowing where to send people for the correct information when you are not the person they should be asking. So referring parents and caregivers and students and community members to the appropriate administrators. You wouldn't ask the superintendent why your bus was late unless it was a chronic thing and had risen to them at that point. You would ask the transportation director what was going on with the buses. So communicating to your constituency who it is they should be approaching for that information, I would add that to that how we govern section. And then
Okay.
how we
And then are you, just interrupt for 1 second, if we're sort of collapsing, if you will, the how we govern and the limits of our authority, we're not going to have all of those items, right? So you're suggesting maybe we go either separately or come back together and suggest which we want to eliminate, or do we want to do that today, and which we want to keep or rewrite them?
So I think
because it's like 7 and
yeah,
14
I
or
think
something. Yeah.
maybe what we should do is come back again.
Okay.
You both, so not with each other, but separately, take a look at the language and think how you would want to combine them. I can go in and do a little tweaking as well, and then we can meet again to talk about a more appropriate draft to send to the full committee.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so I interrupted. So right now I'm showing one category. I'm labeling it number 1.
Yep.
If that's the order, and it's a combination of how we govern and the limits of our authority. And I don't know what we'll call it. Maybe we'll call it how we govern, or we could also, I don't want to say plagiarize, but we could look at other school committee protocols. That's not a good word to use in an academic situation. And just, decide, kind of wordsmith it, but basically I'm calling it, governance.
Yep. And I can give you some more suggestions from other districts for the sample protocols. So section number 2, category number 2 is going to be how we communicate. And that's where we will talk about, let me scroll down 1 second. The communication from the committee to the superintendent, communication going through the superintendent, et cetera. We're going to use a lot of what's already here. We're just going to squish it down a little bit more.
Okay.
Recognizing the chairperson as the spokesperson of the school committee, and we're going to add the superintendent as the spokesperson of the district to make that very clear.
I have a quick question on that for a moment. Have you seen, or it's probably like a bigger question, but have you seen any protocols that address, like, that's important, obviously, right? Superintendent's the spokesperson for the administration, school committee is the spokesperson for the school committee. But I've always been, sort of a believer in the chair position and not in the chair position that, school committee members do speak, to the public. They speak to community members. They speak to the press.
100%, yes.
They're not officially speaking for the committee. And so is that
correct,
or is that important to have? And Allison, I don't know what you think, to have that in there too. I think, because I think it's important, important that committee members know it, and important that the community knows that.
Yes,
we're not stifling people.
A member doesn't disappear into the body. You always retain your ability and right, frankly, to speak your mind. The spokesperson for the committee is more along the lines of if there's a statement that the school committee drafts and it's going to go out to everyone. Sometimes when there's like a big issue on the table and you get that flood of emails, sometimes what some committees will do is they will have the chair as their spokesperson answer those emails, so that not every committee member has to answer every single individual email, so that people's email, your constituents aren't getting 7 emails that say exactly the same thing. So that the chair would say something like, thank you for your input. This is when we're meeting to talk about this, or this is when the hearing on this is. And we hope you'll join us to share your opinion then. So it's not so much that the chair is speaking for the opinions of the entire committee. It's that the chair is the information point as the spokesperson for the committee. So you wouldn't send 7 emails to the entire district saying, you know, we're having a budget hearing on Monday. The chair could say, we're having a budget hearing on Monday.
So maybe we want to wordsmith that a little bit, Allison. What do you, I think, you know, just, I think that would be important to
Yes.
know. Yeah, for everybody.
Oh yeah. Yep. Okay.
Yep, for the committee and the public. Yeah.
Yes, 100%. And then I think your last one should be, well, no, maybe not your last one. I would say professional development, and I hope I'm not making anyone nauseated.
No.
Professional development should be one. It should be, I would say, how we improve. And then, you know what? I would actually move the section about how we treat each other and what happens when things go wrong. I would maybe move that to the beginning. And that's about communication, but that's also about norms and things like that. So we'll have to figure out what the appropriate title for that is. But I think the beginning is a good place to lead with that. This is how we speak to each other. This is the trust and respect that we are building, the dignity of disagreement, etc. I think that should probably be your first category, and then the other ones should come after it.
So, okay.
So you'll start with, so my recommendation would be to start with sort of the ground rules of this is how we communicate with respect, this is how we, you know, build trust, etc. Then move on to this is how we govern and the limits of our governance. Follow that with this is how we communicate with each other, the district, and the public. And then the last category should be this is how we improve our service.
Okay. All right. So that's 4 categories. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, 4 categories. Can I just make a comment, Alice? I'd be curious your thoughts. Like the what happens when things go wrong, and I guess how we treat each other. More of that, like when things go, it seems to be sort of like, you know, this shall not happen. Like it seems like they're sort of on the negative versus, I think I would like to have it be a little bit more like in the positive, like this is what we shall do, right? Like,
yeah, I think that the problem with this for me, and I think I've struggled with this. I think as a full committee, people have different views on this. It's okay for us to disagree. It's okay for us to even be passionately disagree. That doesn't mean I don't still respect the other person. It doesn't mean that I don't still trust them. Those are 2 dramatically different things. And I think sometimes they get really, really conflated in all walks of life, not just here, but I think here in particular. And I think that that's the important, that's, you know, that we want everybody to have their own opinion. The reason there are 5 pretty different people on our committee, to be honest, is great, because you get a lot of different viewpoints and a lot of different lenses, a lot of different experiences that are brought to the table. And it's important to hear those. And I think that that's a good thing. So I think if we could find some way to write this where we are celebrating the differences and the different viewpoints that are at the table, understanding that they might not all agree, and that even when an outcome happens that maybe what we were the dissenting vote on, we're still moving forward as a group. We still trust each other. Everything's still okay, but I still have my opinion, or Al still has his opinion.
It kind of rhymes.
You know,
it's really cute, isn't it? It's sort of hit baby.
Azzy, we can hear you.
Oh,
hang on.
I'm
just going to mute people. Sorry.
I absolutely 100% agree with you there. We can craft a statement that we don't necessarily want to talk about when things go wrong. We want to talk about the value of collaborative problem solving and the dignity of disagreeing in such a way that The disagreement between members of the body is what gets the body to the best decision. That's why we have committees in the first place. And I know we have a little bit of language around that in our charting the course slides, so I will see what I can pull together there too.
The other thing in just jumping onto that idea too, and I don't see, because we used to have this in the past, but I don't, and I might have missed one in here, but there also was, we used to have a protocol around, you know, we will actively deliberate and discuss, but once a vote is taken, you know, we will all support the decision and the vote that was passed. And that's the responsibility of a committee, regardless of how you voted on, how your vote fell. And I'm not sure I see that in. Does that ring a bell with you, Alicia? I think
that's straight out of charting the course that,
yeah.
You know, no one likes every decision. No one gets the end of the budget season and they're like, yay, we have all the money we need forever. We're great. And that you have to work with what you have and move forward as a group. So, and it definitely doesn't mean that you can't still look for ways to, you know, in the future, end up with the outcome you would have preferred, but it does mean that you do work within the bounds of what the committee has decided while that is still in effect. So yes, that's straight out of charting the course.
But does
and
that
it also doesn't mean, sorry, go ahead, Jen.
No, go ahead, Alison.
I was just saying it also doesn't mean that your opinion changes.
Yes, 100%.
You don't go from liking cilantro to not liking cilantro just because the committee agreed that, you know,
they like cilantro.
I don't like cilantro, for the record.
Right.
It's like soap, but that's fine.
Absolutely. 100%.
Okay.
Yeah. Does that exist? You said it's from charting the course, but does that exist as a protocol out there in the world or
yes,
I can do some research on it.
In other district sample protocols, and I can resend that sample protocols document to you as well.
Okay.
That'd be great.
Because we do so many workshops on protocols that, you know, we try to collect the good ones. We try to collect the ones that are like, yes, this is a great idea. So
okay, that would be great. Okay, that would be great. So all right, so we've got 4 categories. So what do you think for next steps, Allison? Do we sort of go off and maybe take a stab at this ourselves and come back, or what do you think, Alicia?
So I would say individually, not together. Individually, go ahead and take a stab at it. If you want to have another committee, a subcommittee meeting where the two of you talk about it, you can do that with or without me. I'm more than happy to attend that subcommittee meeting to help you work on it. I can send you some language pulled from and the sample protocols. So why don't we start there? Is I will send you some sample language. I will send you the other sample protocols. You guys take a look at it and decide, do you want me at the next subcommittee meeting, or do you feel like you can each bring a draft to it where you two can work on it? I'm willing to do either way.
Well, we can maybe sort of just think about that a little bit. I mean, I would like to have you here. I don't want to bring you in if we're not, you know, ready for that. But I think, you know, why don't we schedule it, and then I'll email you and we'll see if it works, and we can bring you in and we can at least run it by you. I mean, it might take us a couple iterations, but maybe the next time to make sure we're sort of on the right path.
Yes.
And then it'll be probably, you know, another meeting or 2 or whatever to kind of really wordsmith and narrow it down exactly how we want to present it to the school committee.
Yep. Sounds good.
My goal, Allison, is to, I mean, it is a goal, right? So I'd like to get it, you know, done in the next, you know, whatever, by the spring, right? To get this done so we vote on it before the end of the school year.
Oh yeah, we can totally do that.
Yeah, good. Okay, great. So anything else? Oh, so the other last thing I think we talked about last time, Allison, and Alicia, was that the school committee had done a full policy review back in 2018. I was part of that. We did it with Mike Gilbert. It took 20 months or 18 months. It was a lot. It hadn't been done in about 12 or 13 years, I guess. So the question is, I don't think we need to do that yet. I mean, I've gone through and I think we're up to I think speed in the most cases of our policies, but is it worth it is there like a sort of policy review light, or is there, you know, just to go through and make sure we're up to date on everything?
So if you were to take it on yourself, which if you did it in 2018 with Mike, He was 2 field directors before me,
Yeah.
and phenomenal.
Yes.
If you did it in 2018 with Mike, then you have a lot of our base policies already that he recommended to you.
Yep.
I would say if you felt like you wanted to do on your own a review of your policy manual, then I would step back through the bulletins that we send out that have the
Yep.
lists of policies that should be updated. And you could do that on your own. You could go through and update each individual section. If you wanted to bring us in for the full review, I can drop in on meetings and give you feedback on things. You can send me, hey, is this the most up-to-date MASC? I can do that. But if I were going to sit with you, that's that policy thing that Mike did. That's a whole other contract. But you can definitely start, because you already did it with Mike in 2018. It's not that long ago.
Right.
A lot of the policies should be the same. I would say maybe start there. Start with our bulletins. Start looking at whether or not you think it's something you can take on yourselves. All of our stuff is online. It's linked through our webpage, our model policy manual, and other districts' model policy manuals. You guys know that. You've gone through them before. So start there and see if it's something you feel like you could take on by yourselves. And if not, we can talk about what it would look like to do the whole policy project again.
Okay. Okay. The other question I had, Elsa, and I'm curious your opinion. So there is a service, I guess, for lack of a better word, from MASC, where our policies can be housed, if you will, on the MASC website. There is a cost associated with that. I'm not sure what the percentage is, but I've gone on to the MASC website just in looking for various policies. And there's a lot that are on there, and it is very convenient to be able to find them all when you're doing, sort of some research. There are many districts out there that their policies are not easily accessible. I mean, I'm not being critical. It's just the reality. They're not easily accessible on their website. And in fact, I've found some that their website's not as up to date as the MASC site is. So I'm just wondering, Allison, your thoughts on, do we want to consider this maybe going forward or for next school year? It would be a budget item to have our policies on the MSC website, because it also, I believe, you automatically update them, or no, I guess you can't without a vote. But how does that work, Alicia?
So what happens is the initial putting them up, and I can send you the draft contract so you can see what the process is and what the cost is. The initial putting them onto what we call our Policy 21 service. That is all of your, at that point, current policies. And then what happens is once you get into updating individual policies as you go along, you send them to us and we send them off to the site to be updated. So we don't follow whether or not you guys are updating things. You have to tell us, and then we put them up. So
okay.
Is it
all right?
I think for me, with that, obviously it will be cost dependent, but I think the biggest, I don't like how ours, I think trying to find ours is very difficult and cumbersome. And so the linchpin for me would be, is it easier to search and find what you're looking for on the MASCOs? I have to believe it is, because ours is not, but yeah, I'd be interested in seeing that.
I'll send you a link just so you can take a look at that, Allison. And yeah, if you could send us over the sample contract, that would be great, Alicia, because I don't know what the cost is, but and I'm not looking to take on more cost, obviously, but I think it would be helpful for the community, for the public, for the press. It's just so much easier than what we have been doing. I thought, and maybe I'm wrong, I thought in the past that it was that there were sort of, when you did this, that, and I guess there is no difference. You guys send your updates for policies to school committees, so that doesn't matter where they're housed. It's up to us to do it. You're not giving any sort of oversight of the policies and the updates. So, okay. All right. Well, something to think about. So she'll send that over. I will, Allison, take a stab, and I think that Lisa Manning can help me with that, or help us with that too, to go through the bulletins, probably going back, probably going back to 2018, believe it or not, because I know in 2018 we had clean policies. But there were a lot of ones during COVID that are or several that are no longer applicable. So that time frame, I think that was kind of COVID related. So I can have Lisa do that. That might be, good use of some of her time, and then come back and see. And if it looks like, listen, maybe there's a handful out there that were missed. I didn't see any of I went back about 2 years, and looks to me like we're up to date, but it's probably worth a good oversight of that. And then we can come back together.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Did you have anything else, Allison?
Nope.
Okay. So I'll put you in touch with John Foskett, and you and I will determine when we can meet again before the 20th.
Perfect.
For the draft flag policy. And Alicia, I'll be in touch with you as well, okay? Because we'll try to do both. Will probably be a similar agenda to today.
Thank you, Alicia.
Thank you, Alicia. All right, Allison, did you have anything else?
Nope, that's it.
All right, I'm going to adjourn us at 12:50. Thank you.
Thank you.